This is Unit 3. This unit's all about applications. And there's some different types of applications that we're going to do. The first type is about geometry. And so what I've done is kind of pulled the geometry out of the chapters that we've worked on. We haven't talked about Chapter 3 at all. Chapter 3 has some geometry and some word problems. So we're going to start with the geometry in Chapter 3, Section 3.1, about perimeter. And you're probably pretty comfortable, hopefully, with perimeter and familiar with perimeter. So the perimeter of any two-dimensional figure is the total distance around the figure. So it's around the outside of the figure, the total distance. There's a couple formulas. The formula for the perimeter of a square is 4, and they use the letter S to represent the side length. So 4 times the side length will give you the perimeter of a square. The formula for perimeter of a rectangle, perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. And you probably already know that as well. The length and the width of a rectangle are the same on the top and the bottom. And so adding them all up is 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. You will have these two formulas on a formula chart for your test and for your final exam. So you don't need to memorize, you just need to understand what those letters represent. So example 1, find the perimeter of a square that measures 12 feet on each side. So I like to draw a picture, 12 feet on each side, 12, 12, 12, and 12. You can either add all these up, or you can say that the perimeter equals 4 times 12. So the perimeter of this square would be 48, and the units are in feet. So the answer would be 48 feet. Example 2, if the perimeter of a square is 64 centimeters, find the length of one side. So again, we have a square. We know the perimeter is 64. We know that perimeter equals 4s. So 64 equals 4s. And in order to solve this, we would divide each side by 4. And you might already do that without even thinking about the equation. But 64 divided by 4 is 16. So each side is 16 and the units are in centimeters. So the answer here would be 16 centimeters. So if it gives you the perimeter of the square and you want the length of one side, and you would divide by 4. And that's using the skills we learned in the solving unit. Alright, the next question. Find the perimeter of this rectangle. So you have the length, which is generally the longer side. So if the bottom's 32, the top's 32. And you have what they call the width, which is generally the shorter sides. Here's a width, here's a width. If this side is 8, this side is 8. And you can either add up these 4 numbers, or you can use the formula. The formula is P equals 2L plus 2W. So 2 times the length, which is 32. That does the same thing as 32 plus 32. And plus 2 times the width is 8. So 2 times 8 does the same thing as 8 plus 8. So that's 64 plus 16, which is 80, and it's in meters. 80, M is for meters. So the perimeter of this rectangle is 80 meters. In example 4, if the perimeter of the rectangle is 42 feet and the width is 7, find the length. So again, I like to draw a picture. Width is 7, length is unknown. I'm going to use L for length. We know if the right side is 7, the left side is 7. If the top is the length, the bottom is also the length. I don't know if that helps or makes it more confusing. We really just need 2 of the numbers to figure this out. So again, I'm going to use the formula. There are some students that don't need the formula. They can just kind of intuitively figure it out, and that's fine. So the perimeter we know is 42. 2 times the length, we don't know the length, so I'm going to leave that L, plus 2 times the width is 7, and I'm just going to solve for L. Now if this is not comfortable for you, you can probably figure this out without needing the equation. I'm just showing you the way the book walks you through the steps. But some of you can just use the picture and figure it out for yourself, which is totally fine with me. 42 equals 2L, 2 times 7 is 14. And we're going to use our solving techniques from here. So 42 minus 14 is, I believe it's 28, equals 2L, divide by 2. So I went to here. The length is 14 and it's being measured in feet. So that means that the top is 14 feet and the bottom is 14 feet. And if you add those numbers up again, you should get 42. So our final answer for this one is 14 feet. So like I said, some students will just kind of intuitively figure this out. I've seen students in the past take the perimeter of 42. They have 7 and 7, so they'll subtract 14 and get 28. And then they'll divide that in half to get 14 for the top and 14 for the bottom. So if that was your thinking, you are correct. That is the same answer. This is just what we call intuitively figuring it out. And this is the official way to solve it with using algebra, using an equation. Either way, you get the same answer. So just kind of basics of perimeter. We're going to look at the next set of examples. If you feel comfortable with this, you can try the next set of examples on your own. If you'd like to keep following along, that's fine too. So on page 2, we just have some more examples of perimeter. Here we have what's called a parallelogram. That's always a mouthful. You see the word parallel in that word. Parallelogram is like a rectangle that's been tilted. And so the slides are kind of slanted and they're parallel to each other. But it has the same properties of a rectangle. If this side is 13, that side's 13. And similarly, if the bottom is 4, the top is also 4. And perimeter for any figure is just add up all the sides. So 13 plus 4 is 17. So we can add all these up. 17 plus 17. And I'm getting 17 from adding 13 and 4. You should get 34, and it's being measured in centimeters. So there's not really a formula for that. It's the same as a rectangle if you want to use the rectangle formula, length and width. But we just add up all the sides and you get your perimeter. Same idea for a triangle. There's not a formula. You just add up all the sides. So 21 plus 45, 66, and then 66 plus 49. So all I'm doing is adding all these up. And you can add them in whatever order you want to. We'll all get to the same answer. 1511. So the perimeter of this is 115 millimeters. So we always put the units on our answers. It's just a good habit to get into. So whatever the units are here are the units for our answer. Very good habit to get used to putting those units on your answer. Especially if you're taking a science, any science class, the units are very, very important. Right now we have these weird shaped figures. They're really just a bunch of rectangles being combined into just kind of some funky shapes. They remind me of like floor plans, and so these aren't any more challenging. It's the same idea, you just add up all the sides. So from perimeter you still add all the sides. And you can start anywhere. I always just put a little mark where I start. So 13 plus 4, and I just kind of keep a running total. 13 plus 4 is 17, plus 6, and this is not the proper way to write this, but this is always how I just keep stacking them. That's 23 plus 5 is 28 plus 7. And like I said, this is not the mathematically proper way to write the addition. And it doesn't really matter as long as you get the right answer. This should be 35. We've added the 7. Just keep track of what you've already added on. So 35 plus 9 is 44. So you just keep track of what you've added on, make a starting point, and every single side gets added together. So the perimeter I got is 44, and it's being measured in centimeters. So you just keep adding them all up until you get back to the beginning. And this is not the mathematically proper way to add, but this is always how I've done it. A mathematician would get upset, so this is not the right way to write it, but as long as you add them all up, you're good to go. Alright, and on the last one, example 8, it says find the length of the missing side given that the perimeter is 196. So what we can do, we have this missing side here. We can take all the other sides and add them all up and then subtract from 196. So we have, again, you just have to mark what you've added. 40 and 12 is 52, plus 18 makes 70, plus 16. So we're just adding all these up. 86 plus 10 would be 96, plus 20 would be 116, plus 32 is 148, and we know the total perimeter is 196. So once you get all those added up, 196 minus 148 will give you 48. So the missing side is 48 feet, and that's the answer. So perimeter is relatively straightforward. It shouldn't cause any hiccups. The formulas are not too confusing. You really just add up all the sides, so it's just a matter of adding things together. If there's ever a missing piece, you just add up what you have and subtract from the total. So perimeter should be a pretty easy topic for us, and that is the first few questions of your homework from section 3.1 on perimeter.